What kind of house do you live in? Are houses in your country special in any way? You're going to hear people discussing questions like these and practice your listening at the same time. Here we go. Listening Task 1. We asked people to describe their dream house. Listen. Who would have the smaller house? Sandra, the first speaker, or Ronnie, the second speaker?
My dream house. I think I've had some dream houses. I was married to a builder, and we used to buy houses and remodel them. And I'd really get excited. I collected all the photographs in the magazines, and this would be this and this would be good. And we really did some wonderful things. But I think I'm beyond that stage right now. I have no house. I want to travel. I like to rent. If I could have my dream house now, they get smaller and smaller. Mm-hmm. I've had the big ones. There are a lot of problems to take care of and clean and all that. But right now, I think if I could, a dream house would be a little cabin in the woods with a big, big front porch where I could sit out and watch the sunsets, and maybe one room inside, or maybe with a little bedroom, and just the necessities that you need. Very, very cozy, a fireplace. But I don't think I'd want to live there all the time. I want to travel around.
A dream house for me would be something very contemporary, modern, very clean line, and yet have a country feel to it in terms of wood. Probably Japanese design would suit me very, very well. And using natural materials. I don't like plastic, and I don't like stainless steel things. Ideally, if I was not a city girl, it would be in the country with trees and greenery and water. But I am a city person. So if I could have this with a little land around it to grow things, then I would be quite happy. I do not require a big house. Something just comfortable, that people feel comfortable coming into. Nothing stiff or formal, but warm and inviting, and clean line is my motto.
Listening Task 1. Answers. Well, this is an interesting one, because neither of them wants a big house. The second speaker, Ronnie, says she doesn't need a big house. But Sandra, the first speaker, says she actually wants a small house of maybe 1 or 2 rooms, so her house would be smaller. Listening Task 2. Listen to the conversation about houses around the world. Which countries do we talk about? Hello, Greg.
Hi, Katie.
Where are we?
We're in Chiang Mai, Thailand.
Yeah. And precisely in your garden.
Yes.
And sitting right outside your house. So we're going to talk about houses around the world and what's the same about them, what's different about them. So what do you notice about houses in Thailand, say, compared to houses in other places that you've lived?
Well, I think compared to, I lived in California before living in Thailand. And the main difference for me is, all the new houses here are concrete. And in California, what really struck me when I first moved there was that all the houses there are built with a wooden frame,
Oh, really?
and then what's it called now? Yeah, and then they just have wood paneling fills in the wood frame basically. And so
Yeah.
coming from England, that was surprising because most houses I grew up with were brick
Yeah,
or stone,
yeah.
and I just thought, well, they're not very sturdy, but because of the number of earthquakes in California,
Yeah, yeah.
it's the only way you want your house to be.
I like the old houses here. I love the wooden houses that are up on the wooden stilts, so they're
yeah.
off the ground.
I do too.
Made
yeah.
of really beautiful dark wood.
Yeah.
Although make a lot of noise when you walk around them.
Yeah.
But I really like those.
Me too. It makes sense too because it's so hot here that
Yeah.
you have a breeze blowing underneath the house
Yeah.
and keep it cool. Our house doesn't stay particularly cool, especially as you go further up.
Yeah, the heat rises,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that is different, certainly to the UK and here, is in Britain everybody would take their shoes off in the house, whereas in Thailand you always take your shoes off outside the house and you never wear shoes inside, right?
Yeah.
Do people in the States, what do they do? Is it the same as the UK?
Some, I'd say yes. It depends on the people. We have friends who take their shoes off, and in California, I think you'd have to be a bit alternative to take your shoes off all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
In general, people keep their shoes on, but after living in Japan, it became a habit, and it just made sense to take the shoes off. There, it's so important to take your shoes off because if you wear shoes on tatami, then you can just destroy the tatami.
So tatami is like the straw mats?
Yeah,
And
that's
are they on the
kind of
floor
gross.
and the walls?
Just the floor. Usually now, homes only have one tatami room.
Okay.
Like they have a traditional style room, and then the other rooms in the house will have a wood floor or maybe tile floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
One thing I remember was watching a program where lots of Europeans were interviewed about the UK, and when they talked about the houses, they said that the British houses were dark and the rooms were very, very small, which I guess I don't know.
that was the other thing that I noticed about houses in California.
Much
The
bigger.
rooms were so much bigger than in England. Yeah, and it's also coming from Japan. The rooms are small, but in Japan, the space is optimized because there's very little furniture. And for example, your bed, you roll it up and put it in the cupboard
Yeah.
every morning, so that creates a lot of space. And whereas in England, you tend to have all the furniture you can possibly fit in the room, and you can't move around it very easily.
And which house that you've lived in have you enjoyed the most?
Well, I really enjoyed. We had a house built specifically for us in California, which is where we lived with both of our children when they were first born, and that was really nice to be able to design exactly how we wanted the house. It had a very open plan. All the bedrooms came onto there were 3 bedrooms that came onto the living room, and the kitchen was it was open also onto the living room. So
Yeah.
it was a very kind of a round, easy, open flowing space.
Yeah.
And I also like the decks, which is like the wooden
Yeah.
patio that American houses have. We
Yeah.
had a nice deck going out the back of the house.
Sounds
Yeah,
nice.
it was nice. Yeah. But I like Thai houses too. Our house has a lot of nice balconies, and
Your house is lovely.
Yeah, and lots of light.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like a lot of light. And yes, English houses can be dark because often the windows are small. Yeah, and you need big windows because there's often not a lot of light outside.
Listening task 2. Answers. So, we talked about houses from a few different countries. Which countries were they? There were 4. The USA, England, Thailand, and Japan. Listening task 3. Before we listen to the next conversation, there are 2 words we need to check. The first one means that one thing has been changed and made into something different. The word is converted. The second word is the word we use for a chicken house. It's called a coop. So, 2 words to remember there. Converted, changed into something different, and coop, a chicken house. Now listen to 2 people talking about the worst house they've ever lived in. Can you hear anything that was the same about the places?
Well, the strangest house I've ever lived in, which could be considered the worst house or maybe the best house, depending on how you look at it, was a converted chicken coop.
Wow.
I lived in the woods in Maryland, which a chicken coop, the way they're constructed, they're about 20 feet long, and the front side is maybe 8 feet tall, but the rear side is only 4 feet tall. So the roof slants down. So when you go into it, you can stand up in the front part, but as you move the 6 feet toward the rear, you have to bend over. So I took this chicken coop, which used to house chickens, of course, and I split it in 2, which means I built a wall in the middle. So 10 feet of it was my studio, where I taught myself how to be a metal sculptor. And the other 10 feet was my bedroom with a wood-burning stove and a bed, and that's all that would fit in there. So basically, I could only stand up in 2 feet of the room, the 2 front feet of the room, or I had to sit down because my head would graze the roof when I was doing my sculpting.
I hope you spent lots of time outside. Was the climate good enough so you could live outdoors?
Well, in the summer, and it was really hot. In the spring and fall, it was perfect, sort of like Thailand is right now. And in the winter, it was deathly cold. So that wood-burning stove had to warm up both sides of the place. But luckily, being a metal sculptor, I worked with a torch, so that warmed up the place as well.
Well, now that we talk about worst houses, I can't even think which one was the worst, because living in Canada and it being so cold, when you talked about the wood-burning stove, that made me think of my great big farmhouse in Cape Breton Island in Canada, which was so big in the winter you could only heat the front half of it. I had to shut the doors so that you wouldn't go in the back and just live in the front. And I had 2 wood-burning stoves. One of them I could cook on, and one of them was for heating only. And I don't think I ever went farther than 3 feet from one of those stoves because it was so cold. My house, it was an old house, and at first it had no insulation in it, which is what you put into the walls of a house to make it, to pad it from the cold outside.
No insulation.
So with no insulation.
That actually has reminded me of a house that I used to live in Eastbourne on the south coast of England. And it's not as cold as Canada, but it did get very cold. And I can remember there was a window in the bathroom that would not shut. There was an inch of it was always open an inch. You couldn't shut it. And in the winter, we had a big snowdrift up the bathroom shelf, and the toilet. It was so cold. The toilet froze up.
Oh, yeah. You were lucky you had a toilet. When I moved into that house, we didn't have a toilet. It was outside.
My chicken coop didn't have a toilet.
We're three quite rare people.
You two win.
Listening task 3. Answers. So, did you hear anything that was the same about anywhere? All of them could be very cold, and in Stuart's and Sybil's houses there was no toilet inside. Well, we hope you enjoyed hearing about some interesting houses, and well done for all that listening practice.